We are now, of course, a decade into America's alternative reality. It's not a blip, it's not an aberration, and it's not likely to be something we return from unscathed. Regardless of what happens in the future, these years will leave their mark on us collectively and individually. They'll shape our children's futures, and in ways we may not even notice, they'll determine how we act and react, what we choose to say and do, how we move through our lives. Writers of the 20th century who witnessed the spread of authoritarianism in Europe returned again and again to the same warning, that the danger is not always loud or sudden or obvious. It's quiet, it's cumulative, and it's built through consent. Silence, as it turns out, is not the absence of speech. It's an active surrender to power. Authoritarianism rarely announces itself. It arrives as a series of small accommodations. It doesn't necessarily begin with silence. It begins with hesitation. I think we are in that hesitation phase now. The question isn't when something becomes unacceptable, it's when we stop noticing that it is. These days I'm reminded of Milan Kundera, who emphasized the importance of collective memory in the face of power. The struggle of man against power, he wrote, is the struggle of memory against forgetting. Of course, America has always been in the process of becoming, of remembering, and sometimes of forgetting too. The contradiction is found right there in our founding document. To form a more perfect union. Is there such a thing as more perfect than perfect? I think it's a poetic way of saying we're not there yet, but we believe it's worth pursuing. Out of that pursuit, America delivered to the world one of its most enduring cultural forms, jazz. Jazz is one of the clearest expressions we have of democracy in action, a structure that allows for freedom, a language that requires listening, a space where individual voices matter, but in relation to the group. When America needed to signal the promise of democracy to the rest of the world, it sent jazz musicians, artists whose music modeled freedom, even as many of them were still fighting for it at home. Music born out of struggle in the shadow of slavery. Beauty and elegance created in the face of ugliness and discrimination somehow came to represent the best of us. Louis Armstrong was one of the most visible figures in America's Cold War cultural diplomacy efforts. He used to say, "I represent America, the good and the bad." You know, the fact that he could say that, even while he was representing this country, it might be the strongest argument he could make for his country. As they say, history moves in all directions at once. There are those who argue that the arc of history bends toward justice, and there are those who argue that it moves in cycles. While it feels like we are slipping backwards in so many ways, just looking back at the last 100 years, it's also undeniable that so many basic rights have been extended to millions of people who lacked them before. At the beginning of this month, I did a piece for WBGO's Art of the Story about the evolving role of women in jazz for Women's History Month. I revisited conversations with women jazz artists like Caroline Davis, Terry Lynn Carrington, and Melissa Aldana. My basic takeaway from that piece was that we have a lot of work to do, but we've come so far. So when my friend, the singer Janis Siegel, who's best known for her decades-long career with the Manhattan Transfer, reached out to tell me about something that had just happened to her at the United Nations, I wanted to hear about it. I've known Janis since I was a kid. She's been featured on this podcast on a few occasions, and last year she and I even co-wrote a song together called The Scent of Danger.
You have the scent of danger. You are forbidden fruit.
Although it was written as a winking song about desire, we really had no idea how prescient that title would turn out to be. Janis also co-hosts Singers Unlimited on WBGO. That's the same place where I produce The Art of the Story, and usually The Third Story too. Although I'd like to make it clear that today's is not. Janis had been invited to help produce a Women's History Month event at the UN. She booked the artists, she assembled the panel, she coordinated the music, everything was moving forward, and then just a few days before it was going to happen, she was told that she would not be allowed to speak at the event. She had been flagged, not for anything that she had said at the UN, but for posts on her public social media account that were critical of the current administration. She was stunned. So we decided to talk about it and record the conversation. At first, I wasn't sure what to do with the recording or what it would become, whether I should share it. It felt delicate. We are both part of the WBGO community. Neither of us has any interest in undermining the relationship between the station and the United Nations or the work of the people involved, many of whom, as Janis makes clear, were acting in good faith. But as we talked, something did emerge. I heard myself say, these little microaggressions that create small amounts of fear, they cause you to think twice before speaking. That's where the damage happens. I admitted to her in the course of our conversation that I was aware, even in the moment of speaking, that I was choosing my words carefully. I was wondering how something I might say could be received in the future, or flagged, or remembered. And it occurred to me that once that fear sets in, something has already shifted. Janis, for her part, is fearless and was very clear about what was at stake. Jazz, she told me, is the music of democracy, of personal expression, of community, of collaboration. And that was what the event was supposed to celebrate. Meanwhile, the person who helped to create that event was not allowed to speak, and she wanted people to be aware of what was happening. Because, she said, who knows what comes next? We just don't know. The day after I talked to Janis, I left for 2 weeks to go to Spain. I was on tour with Leo and Leo. It's my new musical project. And I found myself thinking about that country's own long relationship with authoritarianism. How it takes hold, how it lingers, how it's remembered, and how sometimes it is forgotten. After the death of Francisco Franco in 1975, who had held power for 36 years, Spain didn't so much crawl out of a dictatorship as it leapt headlong into democracy. For decades, I watched a generation of Spaniards insist on their freedoms with a kind of urgency that felt earned. And yet, even there, things are shifting. In recent years, I've noticed a growing number of young people, many of whom never experienced the dictatorship themselves, expressing a kind of nostalgia for it, a belief that things were more stable before, more ordered, a sense that maybe freedom had gone too far, not because they remember it any other way, but because they don't. Back in New York this week, as Women's History Month comes to a close, met today by No King's Day, followed immediately by Passover, the telling of the Jewish exodus from slavery in Egypt, I found myself thinking about the role of memory in all this. I was taught that Moses kept the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years, not because it took that long to find their way out, but because the generation that had known slavery needed to pass, so that those who arrived in Jerusalem would have no direct memory of what had come before. I'm not sure what to make of that exactly, but it says something about memory, how powerful it is, how dangerous it can be, how easily it can be shaped or lost. I returned to my conversation with Janis and realized that not sharing it would be its own kind of silence. And silence, as we know, is not neutral. Today is No King's Day, a day when people across the country are gathering to make their voices heard. Because silence is not the absence of speech, it is an active surrender to power. And although something has already shifted, we are not done yet. The conversation is still ours to shape in order to keep pursuing something more. Here's my conversation with Janis Siegel.
The aroma of desire has lingered on my skin. This electric charge is pulsing, put me closer, let me in. So are you sure you want to be talking to a threat to national security?
It only makes you hotter to me, Janis. Give me the shape of it, because I'm kind of playing catch up here. Tell me what was supposed to happen and what did happen.
Okay, what was supposed to happen was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Steve Williams from WBGO asked me if I wanted to be involved in a collaborative project for Women's History Month with the UN. And I said, yeah, that sounds fabulous. And they want to do a Women in Jazz event with women ambassadors and diplomats and your own guests and, you know, all kinds of performers and artists and managers and publicity people that are in music. And then he got Melissa Walker involved from Jazz House Kids, which was great. And so Melissa and I were sort of co-producing the event. And I immediately said, can I come to see the room? And I need to see your piano. And, you know, and they invited me. And I went down there with absolutely not a hiccup. I went to the UN, looked at the beautiful space met the women that were sort of spearheading the event, who were warm and supportive and excited and fans and beautiful. And I looked at the piano, I looked at the microphones, I met the sound person, I, scoped out the flow of the event and had a little tour and left. And then Melissa and I were really moving forward with getting the band together. We got 2 people from the rhythm section from Diva Jazz Orchestra. Very important, Sherry Maracle in this scenario. And there were 2 parts to the event. A little roundtable discussion, like sort of a small panel with Michelle Taylor, who is manager of Christy DeShiel and Uptown String Queens, I think. And me. That's New York. Because I've had 60 years of experience in the music business, and I've seen a lot of scenarios and cultural coming and going, and I have some stories and about being a woman since I'm 12 in the business. So who else? Oh, I got Jen Jade Ledesna to come, who is my one of the women I sing with in Bobby Sanabria's Multiverse Orchestra. So we put the panel together, and then the performers, we were getting a young Latina trumpet player named Linda Briseño. Fabulous. I contacted her, got her. So it was all coming together. All right. So last Wednesday. So today is Tuesday. So Wednesday, I was getting ready to go to a gig at Birdland, and I got a call from Steve Williams saying, "You're not going to believe this, but the UN has denied your participation in this event because there are too many red flags in your social media." I couldn't believe it at first. I thought, what are you talking about? How are my values not aligned with the United Nations, which is all about community, collaboration, and freedom and democracy, and, everybody working together, and what? And then I said, what are they afraid I'm going to do? Basically, they were afraid I was, it's funny, lace into a political rant during the panel discussion on women in jazz. So, I cannot participate in this event, which I really put my heart and soul into, and, was looking forward to very, very much. Apparently, I could go as a guest.
Yeah.
And I was going to have the rehearsal here. It was all sort of coming together.
I follow you on social media. Most of what I see from you is music and food and community.
See, this is the thing. I have 2 pages.
Uh-huh.
One is a private page, which you're on, and you see food and you see music and you see, pictures of the neighborhood and touring and promoting gigs.
Yeah.
And then my public page is where I do post political things, but it's nothing. Believe me, I hate politics. I hate them.
Yeah.
But to me, this is beyond politics.
Yeah.
And it's something that everyone should be speaking out against. It's not politics. This is some crazy shit going on here that's morally wrong.
What you post, I assume, has mostly to do with the current administration.
That's correct. Only.
So it has nothing to do with the UN per se.
No. I was never been to the UN before last week.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything like, we should bomb the UN. We should kill Trump. I can't wait till he's dead. I don't go for that either.
What do you think you said that was the red flag? And by the way, do you think you're more political in what you post than some of the other people that were invited?
I don't. But apparently I'm the only one that was flagged. I'm the only one. I posted on my public page because if I posted on my private page, I realized early on that it was like preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
I'm aligned with my musician colleagues all over the world, and and my family certainly. Except I do have a brother that's a Trump supporter, actually. But every family's got one, I guess. But since it became clear that he was going into politics, I've been posting about him. I said, don't do it, people. Don't vote. Please don't. I'm a New Yorker. We grew up with him and his racist family. He's not a good person. Don't do it. So,
right. So it
that
goes back. So we know what it is. We know what the flags
Yeah.
are. It's that you've been posting against Trump for years. It's very interesting that you say that. I could imagine some people, especially public people, making exactly the opposite calculation, which is to say, I'm going to share my politics with my friends and family, and I'm going to share food and music with my fans. And your position was, no, food is for me and my people. But the politics, I could actually maybe make a difference.
That's what I thought. Maybe I could change one mind.
At the risk of losing some fans, though. I mean, was that ever a part
correct.
of you?
Oh, absolutely lost fans. I mean, I got a lot of shut up and sing. Nobody cares what you think. Why don't you shut up?
What do you think about that shut up and sing thing?
I mean, honestly, the Manhattan Transfer has been apolitical, basically, throughout our whole career. We just that wasn't our thing. But again, like I say, this is beyond politics.
Yeah.
What I think is that when something is so wrong, like this administration, I'm also a citizen. I'm a citizen. I'm a mother. I'm a woman. I'm a Jew. I have the right to say something. I also sing. But because I'm a public figure, it means I can't share my opinion about things.
When you said that you're the only one that they went for, you were the co-producer, you were in the hot seat. It's possible it's that. I
think so too. I had the highest profile, I think, of anyone involved. And I think the point was that I was speaking. I was going to speak.
Yes.
I was on the panel.
Right. They were going to hand you a microphone and take what they considered to be that risk, I guess.
That's right. They considered it a risk. Me.
What do you think is the right thing for people to do to support you and what this might represent this week?
That's a really good question. And it's tricky. It's thorny because many of my colleagues and women that I gathered for the event said, what do you want me to do? I want to do whatever you think is right. Should I not go? Should I go and ask a question? And I honestly, with all my heart, don't want to negatively impact the relationship that Steve has been working on between BGO and the UN, or impact Jazz has kids. I loved working with Melissa. It's not their fault. And the women who hired us, I mean, the women from the UN that were in charge from that end were fantastic. It's not their fault either. And I'm guessing it's men in the security department that just don't know me, and they just looked at my public page and they saw Heather Cox Richardson. Oh my God. And they saw Jesse Wells. Whoa, protest singer.
I mean, that is interesting, the idea that anybody would be barred from speaking, though, even if you were to say something.
I'm angry because I was punished for speaking out.
Yes.
It's like a loss of innocence. I thought the UN was more aligned with the values of jazz, really.
Well, sure. Especially because there are still jazz and humanitarian ambassadors, international ambassadors. That's still a thing,
I did it myself. I was an ambassador. I went to Saudi Arabia. I went to Dubai. I did it with Herbie Hancock. I was proud to do it, to represent our country.
I get the sense that you are fearless and not afraid of saying anything, but how do you feel about representing our country right now? Do you think that the country that you represent when you go out in the world is the same one that you thought you were representing for all these years?
It's a different country now. Yeah. When I go out on the road, say with a Herbie Hancock, to represent America, I'm thinking of the good things. And certainly jazz is the music of democracy. It's the music that was built on the backs of slavery. I mean, it comes out of intense pain, which is our history. And I don't want to deny that, either. I mean, I can't say that everything is beautiful here now, because it's not. We are one sneeze away from being North Korea, in my view.
I think you set up the dichotomy perfectly. We have to remember, when thinking, is this the worst it's ever been? There was a long period of the history of our country where some humans owned other humans. Clearly, we've come a long way. And on the other hand, we're slipping into this place that we never thought we would be in. Personally, am scared. This experience that you're going through scares me.
You should be.
Yeah.
Because what's next?
Well, these little microaggressions that create small amounts of fear that cause you to think twice before speaking, never mind acting. I think that's where a lot of the damage gets done, where you are just afraid, well, what if I say this and then it gets flagged or whatever? Are you scared to speak?
I'm not scared to speak. No. I have to. I have to speak. It's wrong what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel it in my gut. I've always felt it. It's something you feel, because I was brought up knowing the difference between right and wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about our children. I mean, it's making it so hard for them. We'll be gone. I'll be gone soon, but they want to start a family, buy a house, have their kids have a great education. Everything's being ruined. And by this madman in the White House and the people that enable him. Money seems to be, it's just not that important.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice. It's good to work and have a job and have some bread and have a home. Yes. But this is not America.
This is not America. Is that what you said?
No, not in my view. And I'm not saying let's go back to the good old days of the 50s either. And I think there are extremists on the liberal side as well.
Speaking of let's not go back to the good old days, the way we got here today is that you were putting together a program about women in jazz. And I do think that it's worth maybe just to hopefully feel a little bit better about the fact that history moves in all directions at the same time. While we're experiencing, as you say, a sneeze away from North Korea, I am curious to know what you see in terms of the role that women play in the jazz community, the way it's changed over the years. As you say, from the age of 12, you were a working woman in the music business.
Yes.
What have you seen as the evolution of that?
I have to say I'm very encouraged by more and more women instrumentalists, because that was definitely lacking when I was certainly a teenager. I was a teenage instrumentalist myself. I mean, we played guitar, and that was unusual at the time. I mean, I was one of those girl groups.
Yep.
And on Redbird Records, as a matter of fact, the label of the Shangri-Las and Reparata and the Delrons. But we played our own instruments, which was unusual at the time. One of our bylines for promoting a concert was, want to see an all-girl group?
I think that honestly would still be a byline. There are bands that want to see an all-girl group, and that's the selling point.
Well, Artemis, Diva Jazz Orchestra, I mean, all over the world, and I still travel all over the world. I'm seeing more and more female instrumentalists and freaking amazing ones. So that is very, very encouraging.
Yes.
I mean, there was sexist behavior, but honestly, with the transfer, which was the bulk of my career, I was kind of protected in a way because I was in a multi-gendered group. But my partners, Tim and Alan, always involved me and Cheryl. Always. I was a part of every decision, if not making them creatively, certainly. I mean, Tim liked to go up to Amit's office and spar and fight with him. And Amit was, I know Amit was chasing some girls around a coffee table too, but never ever with me, ever. He was extremely supportive and gentlemanly, and Nesui I adored.
Yeah.
There was a lot of respect there, I think.
I think there was respect, and at the core of it, I think there is that, and you don't mess with the asset, in the sense that, like,
don't mess with the asset. That's right.
If you know what I mean. But
Yep,
don't fondle the asset. But the other thing is, we could say that. I think we could say that.
Fondle the ass.
Yeah. Ed, that's interesting. Also, the power of being in a band. When you're in a group, you have this kind of like collective strength that you don't have if you're just a single.
That's correct.
Female.
I found that to be true. And we were surrounded by men. Managers, press agents were mostly men, although press agents were a good place for some women. It wasn't too offensive or something. But Sylvia Rohn, she was one of the first women executives in the music business. There weren't a lot of female heads of record companies then,
Sure. Or heads of any companies.
Right. I was always on the lookout for women producers like Helen Keane, or women composers. It was sort of a little bit underground. But now I think it's very common to see a woman producer in the studio, a woman engineer. Lots of young women are going into music technology. And I think it's better.
Yeah.
But again, it's the overpowering patriarchy that's the problem, I think, in a higher sense, not just the music business.
The patriarchy is clearly still intact, but in that sense, maybe jazz was actually behind the times, in the sense that if now the music business reflects the general shape of the world, that means it's caught up. Female bass players and drummers, it was a very rare thing. Composers.
Very rare. Even when I was hanging with Richie Cole, there was Dottie Dodgen. There were a few women. It wasn't Vi Red, great saxophone player. There weren't that many, and they were oddities.
Emily Remler, guitar player.
Oh yeah, amazing, genius guitar player. Yeah.
But you could name them because you could name probably all of them because there were so few of them. I see the same thing. I spoke to Terry Lynn Carrington earlier this year. She said something so interesting to me. And obviously she's thought a lot about this and talked a lot about this. And this is part of her.
Oh yeah, this is her thing.
Yeah. She said, for the most part, the women who have been able to succeed or who have been valued in jazz have done so by playing, quote unquote, like a man. And she said, what we don't really know is what happens when that's no longer a factor. What happens when women play like women, not trying to play like a man. And I said, so you think that there is such a thing as playing like a woman? And she said, do we agree that there's a difference in lived experience between men and women? And do we agree that our lived experience comes out in the work? So how could that not be the case? I like the argument of, no, it's not that everybody is the same. Everybody is not the same, and they should not be asked to play the same or be the same.
But I think you hit the nail on the head. Women and men have vastly different experiences in life. They see the world differently. Women, just biologically, So
I think we're still in the process of this transformation, but I do feel that there are executives more and more, and producers, engineers, as you say, all of it, for publicists, in every aspect of it. It's like what you described when you were starting. It's very, very different now.
Oh my God. Yeah. You could barely see a woman except for the singers. The whole story with women in the 30s and 40s were usually singers, and they had to look a certain way. And that's why Ella Fitzgerald had a little bit of a hard time, because she didn't fit that mold. And Anita O'Day broke that mold. She started wearing suits. She didn't fit that mold of the glamorous glamour girl as female vocalist for the big band.
Yes.
That was a revolution too. When women started breaking out of that, how men expected them to look.
Right. What role are women playing for men as opposed to for themselves?
Right. I mean, do you notice a difference between men and women jazz players as far as their soloing or groove or?
Sometimes I think yes, and sometimes not at all. Like I think Fred Hirsch and Bill Evans are some of the most gentle, elegant,
Feminine.
feminine piano players, and I love the way that they sound. And I think Terry Lynn and Allison Miller, I think, are very strong and precise. When I talked to her, I said, I feel so much precision in the way you play, and she said, yeah, I'm very intentional about the way I play. And
intention, right, exactly.
So I guess what I'm saying is these are examples of players who I think don't necessarily play to the gender stereotype on either side.
Yeah, they don't play like a girl.
Just like Fred Hirsch and Bill Evans don't play like
an aggressive style, let's say.
Do you think you notice a difference
between men and women?
The way they play?
I notice a difference when women are collaborating. Like, for instance, when the Manhattan Transfer worked with Diva, I felt a very big difference between working with them and working with an all-male big band, which we've done all the time. This was the first time we worked with an all-female big band. There was an air of collaboration, support, having our backs, shouting encouragement, always with Diva. We're interested, listening to the music and really entering into it, where I don't think men do that necessarily. Interesting.
Well, what would you like people to take away from this experience right now of what's happened to you? Because what we really came to talk about is this thing that happened to you. What do you think they should do? What do you think they should know?
I just wish I knew more, or I could speak directly with the people that banned me, because I'm getting everything secondhand. I think it might be sugar-coated a little bit. I don't know. I'm getting just very little information about the real whys and what they looked at and what they found objectionable and what they were afraid of.
Well, and also, what is the policy? Is there some kind of a policy that?
Right.
And what are the criteria?
What are the parameters? I didn't get any information or any warning. I was blindsided by this. I had a vision of the United Nations as an apolitical organization, and I guess it's not, which was very disheartening and deeply sad. I hate to say that we should be vigilant or just aware. I want people to be aware this is happening, because who knows what's next? We just don't know. It just keeps you on edge all the time, this not knowing what direction the world is going to be in tomorrow.
I got the sense when we set this conversation up that you are like rightfully outraged, but do you have a sense of like adrenaline? I need to do something, or I mean, do you feel unsettled?
I honestly don't know what to do, and I would do something much more explosive, except I wanted to be directed to the guys who did it, not to BGO, not to Jazz House Kids, not to the UN ladies who are trying to put this together in good faith, who want to do more things with me, they said. But I said, okay, that's great, but not at that venue. Nope.
I have to believe that there are probably a lot of people within the UN who feel like you feel.
Oh, hell yeah. I can't imagine what there aren't. And I'm sure every one of my colleagues feels that way too.
It's such a hard question, right? We're here to talk about something very important. We're here to talk about women in jazz. You'd put this thing together. It was going to be a very productive conversation. It's important to have those conversations.
Joyful event. celebrating jazz, which is the music of democracy, of personal expression, of community, of collaboration. That's what I thought we were celebrating. And it turned out not to be that.
At the same time, this other issue may be more pressing and more urgent right now.
I mean, I understand that it's a very sensitive time and the UN is in session. I mean, the UN called a General Assembly even before our fucking Congress did. You know, the attack on Iran happened on a Friday or Saturday, and the General Assembly met immediately while our Congress said, we can wait till Monday.
Janis, this is unfolding. I have a feeling we'll talk about it again, but thank you for taking a minute to just like give me the lay of the land in this moment.
My pleasure. It feels good to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, because honestly, I don't know what to do except be scared for the future of jazz musicians traveling and coming home. And are they going to be checking the social media when we come home from touring?
Or will they ask you to defend a statement you made on stage somewhere?
That's right.
Janis Siegel, thank you very much.
Thank you, Leo.